Hi there. Looks like a few families have started to join us. Thank you so much. We will go ahead and get started since it is 5:02. And I just wanted to let you know we are still waiting on our American Sign Language interpreter. As soon as they arrive, I will go ahead and spotlight them for everybody.
Así que hola, buenas tardes. Ya parece que algunas familias comenzaron a llegar. Vamos a comenzar. Nada más quiero dejarles saber que nuestra intérprete de lenguaje a señas aún no ha llegado, pero en cuanto llegue, la dejamos entrar y la presentamos.
Paula, could you go to the next slide, please? All right, so thank you to those families who have joined us. We really appreciate you being here. We are going to go ahead and get started. And I first wanted to introduce our Spanish interpreter, Lupe. Lupe, would you mind letting our families know that they're able to click on that globe icon and select Spanish if they would like to listen in tonight in Spanish, please?
Okay. Hola, gracias a todos por acompañarnos esta noche. Antes que nada, quiero presentar a la intérprete al español Lupe. Lupe, por favor, deja saber a las familias que si quieren escuchar la presentación en español, hagan clic en el icono del mundo que está en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y seleccionen Spanish o español.
Okay, if you are just joining us, we are still waiting on our American Sign Language interpreter. I will be spotlighting them as soon as they arrive. And I did want to let you know, if you have any questions during tonight's presentation, please feel free to click on the Q&A button, either at the top or bottom of your screen, and you're going to be able to submit your questions that way. If your question is for a specific speaker, please write their name so that we know who the question is addressed to. If it's for anybody, you are welcome to just leave a name off, and then it will go to any of our speakers. With all of the business out of the way, I wanted to welcome you. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. And welcome to our UC Riverside and Riverside Unified School District joint webinar titled, Who Will You Become? Our Paths to STEM Careers. My name is Jessie. I'm a staff developer for the Department of Innovation and Learner Engagement. And I sincerely want to thank you for joining us tonight. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce Angelina Lamb from the UC Riverside School of Medicine.
Hi, everyone. Hello and good evening. My name is Angelina, and I am a third-year PhD student in biomedical sciences. And I am also the vice president of our Biomed Graduate Student Association. I am so glad to be here today and to be introducing our wonderful speakers. So without further ado, first up, we have Karpet McCurtron. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So these are tonight's speakers. Going first is Karpet. So Karpet is a second-year PhD student in the Biomedical Sciences program. He conducts research in Dr. Monica Carson's lab and investigates the many roles microglia play in the CNS. When not in lab, he enjoys playing chess, practicing piano, and spending time in nature. His favorite part of being in the Biomed program is how open everyone is to discussing not only their own, but other people's research as well. In his opinion, this is one of the key aspects of an ideal scientific community, and it's something that we all have in surplus. Take it away, Karpet.
Okay, thank you all for being here, and thank you for that awesome introduction, Angelina. So I'm going to be talking today on my journey through science and how I've gotten to where I have. I guess we can start at the very beginning, just with a little bit about myself. I was born in Pasadena, California, to immigrant parents who came from Armenia. I attended an Armenian school until about 6th grade, and I have always been curious about exploring all aspects of life, and that's through a variety of ways, through science, music, philosophy, culture, religion, and pretty much any other topic I could get my hands on. But science, music, and philosophy seemed to be three topics that I was always very interested in. So they are the three that kind of stuck to me throughout life and have led me here. So you're going to be seeing a lot of quotes, philosophical quotes throughout this presentation. So we'll start with this very first one by Marcus Aurelius that says, "Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them." And I think this is something that scientists do every day. We kind of wonder upon life and have all these questions and search for those answers. And we really like to be a part of the world that we're involved in. So to jump into a second philosophical quote right away from the famous philosopher Carl Jung, it says, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul." And this is something that's extremely important, not only for scientists, but in all professions. When you become an expert in something, as you do as you go through graduate school and into your professional career, it is very easy to forget that they're just regular people. They started as regular people and they still are. So are scientists and in every other profession. So not forgetting to have that little touch of humanity is really critical, in my opinion. There we are. So to emphasize that point, I've prepared a little collage of some of the things that I do outside of science. So there's a picture of the high school and the middle schools that I went to, some activities I do for fun, like playing the piano, going to classic car shows, and sports like rock climbing and axe throwing. Don't try that at home, kids. And also participating in the local Armenian church, where I help to translate sermons and give Bible verses in English for the non-Armenian speaking population. Any other spare time I may have would be spent with my dog Alpha, who I very much adore. So how was I involved in STEM in high school? I'm sure this is a question a lot of parents have, and it's a very critical one, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be as intensive as some of you may imagine. So one of my main points of involvement was in a group called the Solar Boat Club. This is where we actually built a canoe ourselves and powered it with an electric motor and batteries. The purpose of it being that it had to be completely recharged using solar panels and then entered into a competition with other high schools. So this was a really rewarding experience. It was a lot of fun, a lot of hands engineering, but also like woodworking and a little bit of, I guess you can say a little bit of an artistic flair to make our boat look, different from everyone else's. And I took a lot of AP classes. I took almost all of the AP classes that my high school had to offer, but I know that that's not always an option. So there's always community college courses and a variety of other ways to get involved in STEM. But as far as my personal journey goes, that was pretty much it in high school. There we are. So once I started college, I think the big question was, how do I get into a PhD? So I attended Cal Poly Pomona, and I had taken AP Physics at my senior year of high school, and I felt like I was good at it. So I picked that as my major and thought I would study biophysics. As it turned out, that's not exactly how course curriculum works. So in my third year, being about halfway done with or more than halfway done with my undergraduate education, I actually switched majors. I switched to studying biotechnology. And about a year into that, I ran into some very difficult chemistry courses and ended up failing one of those courses, actually. This made me realize I had a gap in my knowledge, which I needed to fill if I wanted to be a well-rounded scientist, which of course I wanted to be. So I took a lot of chemistry courses. And when you're in college and you take enough courses in a field of study that is not your main field of study, you can actually pick up a minor, which is kind of like a smaller secondary degree. So because of my desire to learn more about some of the things I felt a bit deficient in, I actually picked up a minor in chemistry, which obviously I was kind of proud of. During that time, I also participated in a lot of research. So I started my first real research experiences were in a plant genetics lab where we did what's called functional genetics. So you take a plant's gene and you actually turn it off, you disable it, and you see how that changes what the flower does. So we were able to change the flower's colors. It would form some organs and not form other organs. It was really interesting experience. While working on that, I also became interested in invasive species. and studied the behaviors of a bug called ACP because it infects California citrus plants and ends up killing them with a bacterial infection. So studying that was really important to me because citrus is a huge industry in California and invasive species have been a problem for a very long time. So I took some interest in that. Eventually, I did an internship where I worked at a water quality facility. Regenerative medicine was something that I took a turn to a bit later because I was interested in translating some of my research skills into the medical field. And once I graduated, I worked at a cancer therapy lab at USC. Something that I would like to emphasize here is that my shift towards medical research was gradual. And that's okay. Many of you are just starting out your educational journeys, and you may have some indication of what you might want to do. I'm here to tell you, do what you think is best for you. And if you change your mind, that's okay. Because as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, you're going to figure it out. So that leads me to what I'm doing now. I study microglia. These are cells in your brain that do a lot of very different things. They help fight with infections. They alter the way that your brain is wired, and what can pass in and out of the brain is another one of their critical roles that they help with. So that makes them extremely important for day-to-day function and kind of how you end up being who you are. A lot of people, including myself, may be led to believe earlier on in life that a science lab kind of looks like that picture that I have in the middle, with a lot of, maybe potions or somewhere that like magic happens. But I'm here to tell you, it's just as cool, but doesn't quite look like that. It looks more like the picture on the right. And in my opinion, more interesting things happen there than magic, but that is something you will discover on your own. Below that is a picture of my wonderful lab. We have a lot of students who participate at all different levels of education. We have volunteers. We have students who are part of scholars programs in college, who are undergraduates who do research with the hopes of attaining a higher level of education afterward. We have master's students and PhD students. And we all contribute, I would argue, pretty much just as equally, whether it be with the work that we do, with our ideas. Our lab is very multifaceted in that way, and many labs are. Right to the left of that is a picture of one of those microglia I was talking about. And you could see from the other picture to the left of it that they change shape a lot based on what they do. And this is one of the coolest things about them, and what made me super interested in them is they can go from being very spread out and kind of stretched out and touching everything in the brain around them to becoming just like this big blob that becomes very aggressive, and that's when it's trying to fight off an infection. It looks kind of more like an amoeba, if you're familiar with that, and tries to eat up the bacteria or viruses that are surrounding it that it senses. So yeah, this is just kind of a scope of where you will end up going if you continue to pursue an education in science and want to end up doing a PhD. Here's another quote by another famous philosopher, Epictetus. It says, "Don't just say you have read books. Show that through them you have learned to think better, to be a more discriminating and reflective person. Books are the training weights of the mind. They are very helpful, but it would be a bad mistake to suppose that one has made progress simply by having internalized their contents." And this is extremely important because when you go to college, you learn a lot of things. And sometimes you may feel that those things are not always the most applicable to your day-to-day life. But when you're in STEM, you can bring all of these ideas together and really use them to make some really interesting experiments and ask some very interesting questions that no one else has asked before. So the more you learn, the more you have the ability to learn and teach the world something that it doesn't know yet, which is kind of a unique experience that scientists get to go through. I think we jumped forward a bit. Maybe please go back. Okay. I think there's one more. There we are. Here are some things I've learned along the way. First of all, believing in yourself is the most important part, because there's this kind of stereotype that scientists are these super geniuses or extremely intelligent or extremely capable individuals. And I'm here to tell you we're just regular people who happen to be interested in science. Anyone, in my opinion, can contribute to the sciences. that it's not always just about science. There's a lot of creativity that goes into it as well, whether that goes into the illustrations or artwork that goes into scientific publications. Sometimes even just trying to explain an idea of something that has not been illustrated yet can be extremely difficult and takes the creative touch. And also that diversity creates strength. So if you think differently, if you have ideas that are very much out of the box from the people around you, you could use that you could use that as a great strength in the sciences. The quote here from James Baldwin says, "Those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others doing it." So I take that as, don't let anyone stop you or tell you that you can't do something, just prove them wrong. Would I change anything going back? I suppose I would. Here's a few kind of key pointers. One would be to stress less and focus more. Stress is the enemy. You'll learn that you waste a lot of time stressing if you allow yourself to do so excessively. Learn what relaxes you and do it. I love listening to music. Here's pictures of two of my favorite bands, the Arctic Monkeys and Cage the Elephant. And recently I've taken up yoga and stretching as a form of relaxation. Now, I certainly can't do the pose this gentleman here is doing, perhaps one day, but it's still something that relaxes me. Have less self-doubt. Really, I'd really like to emphasize that. If you believe that you can do it, you can. It's as simple as that. And another key point is to learn better time management, because as you go through your undergraduate and then graduate education, you'll learn the most challenging thing is just learning how to best manage your time. So thank you, everyone. I'd like to leave you with one last quote before I give it off to the next presenter, which is again from Marcus Aurelius. It says, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And this is something I think about frequently when I'm challenged, when something is in my way or something is frustrating me, is that finding the solution to that problem could be the way or the answer to what I was trying to achieve, even if it's not exactly the path upon which I originally intended on going. And that's really important in science because experiments go wrong all the time. There tend to be more failures than successes, and not giving up and always coming up with the next solution is how you move forward. So thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful talk, Carpet. Very good to hear about your journey. On to the next speaker I would like to introduce. Paula da Silva Frost is a PhD student at the University of California, Riverside in the neuroscience program. She has been conducting research about allergy, lung inflammation, and potential contributions of the brain to breathing deficits. She enjoys doing research because science provides her with the tools to better explore the world around her. In her free time, Paula enjoys playing the guitar, doing outdoor activities, and spending time with her doggie. Paula is part of the Welcome to Grad School podcast, which talks more about people's personal stories and journeys into their PhD. Take it away, Paula.
Thank you so much, Angelina. So today I'm going to be talking about my own journey into becoming a scientist and how that went for myself. And hopefully you guys will get some experience from my own experiences. So first, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about what does being a scientist mean. So scientists, we just use scientific methods to design experiments to prove or disprove a hypothesis. So for example, if you come up with a hypothesis that coffee keeps you awake, you can then design an experiment. For example, I'll get a group of people, half will drink coffee, half will drink water, and then we're going to measure some things out of that experiment. We can measure their heartbeat. We can give them a questionnaire and see how much they feel awake after consuming their drink. And then we're going to collect all the data and we're going to use the conclusions from the data to answer if the hypothesis was right or wrong. In this case, yeah, coffee does keep you awake. So this seems easy and inherent to human nature because this is something we're doing all the time in our everyday lives. For example, when we're a younger kid, like a baby, and we are seeing objects and we put objects in our mouth, we might be asking, oh, can I eat this object? Then we're going to put it in our mouth. We're going to perform our own experiments, and then we're going to draw conclusions. No, this is not something I can eat. So even though this is inherent to human nature and we're accustomed to do it every single day, every time that we go into the internet and we Google a scientist or you watch a movie about scientists, they're still portrayed as this genius people very far away from everyday life, which is not true. So even though everyone can be a scientist, we have to learn how to be a scientist. And that's because when we're designing experiments to prove a hypothesis, depending on how you design the experiment, you might lead to a conclusion that is false and does not reflect the hypothesis that you were trying to prove. So here I have an example, the same hypothesis that coffee keeps you awake. You might just go yourself and drink some coffee. And then let's just say that after 40 minutes, you're still feeling a little sleepy. And then you're going to conclude that coffee does not keep people awake. That is not true. So one way that we learn how to be a scientist is through graduate school and pursuing a PhD degree. You're going to learn how to design experiments and how to answer questions using the scientific method. Now, being a scientist is just part of who I am. My name is Paula. I am a neuroscience PhD student at UCR. The research that I do is about allergies. So whenever we have an allergic response in our lungs, some people might experience difficulty in breathing. My research explores the idea that the inflammation generated by an allergic response may impact the brain, and the brain contributes to the changes in respiration that we observe after allergy. But today I'm not going to be talking about my research. I want to say that this is part of me, but not all that I am. So for example, I have a younger sister. We were best friends when we were kids. At least we're best friends now. I was a basketball player in college. I have a wonderful partner, Fernanda, and I adopted a doggy during quarantine. This is little Julie with her hat, being very happy or unhappy in this picture, depending on how you see it. I love the outdoors. I love climbing, hiking, biking, playing my guitar. Okay, so now where am I from? How did I start my journey towards becoming a scientist? I'm from this country called Brazil. It's located in South America, and the official language of Brazil is Portuguese. Now, so English is my second language. I had to learn it so that I could come here, which was also some sort of barrier for me. So Brazil is very big. I'm actually in this little state here called Rio de Janeiro, from a city called Rio de Janeiro, where I grew up in a small town called Cabo Frio, which is beautiful. Then for high school, because Cabo Frio didn't provide a lot of opportunities, my family moved to Rio de Janeiro, which is also a gorgeous city. People should visit if they have the chance in their lives. Now, while I was in Rio de Janeiro studying during high school, I was very good at biology. But every time that I brought up to people, so what are some of the opportunities that I can do with biology? A lot of my professors told me that I have to go for a medicine career. That was the obvious next step, especially because I was good in that subject. My parents, they said the same thing. And neither of my parents had gone to college. So they saw college as a way of a practical opportunity to make money afterwards, which part of it is true, but it's not the whole story. So even though everyone kept telling me to go for medicine, I loved science and I loved biology growing up. I was interested in observing animals' behavior. I was interested in how the cells within an animal would be communicating with each other. So I started talking to them, and then we compromised. My parents insisted in medicine. I ended up in a biomedicine major. Nowadays, I do think people have a lot more tools to understand a little bit more about the major that they're going to before they start. But at the time, I didn't understand much what biomedicine meant. But I was very lucky because in Brazil, biomedicine is focused on studying the biology of human, animal physiology, cellular functions, with a focus on research. So the whole major was focused on getting us research experience. We had to join a lab, it's still in our first year, as a research internship. So we'd actually be getting paid to do this opportunity right as soon after high school. And the program also recommended us to do a lot of professional activities to help us improve our curriculum vitae, which is a document that we put all sort of professional experiences that we've had. So they wanted us to go to conferences, symposiums. In those events, we actually present the research that we have conducted in the lab ourselves. And then we have other researchers, other professors, other students. They're going to be talking to us about our research. They're going to be helping us with next experiments. The whole process is very transparent. And even though the university itself helped us a lot with our professional development, I started very early in research. I didn't love the first research that I was doing. So I changed between different types of labs quite a bit. So I started with cancer research, then I did Alzheimer's research, then I ended up doing what I'm doing right now. But changing lab is part of the process. Even though when you're focused, you have to experience a little bit other experiences. Now, some of the lessons that I learned about this is that you have to follow your heart. Only you know what you want and what you need in your life. And there will be a way of making money out of it. There's so many opportunities that we only find out about a specific career after we're in college. So people will be willing to pay for your experience. And also, in my personal opinion, luck was part of my process. Now, when I was a sophomore, I decided to apply for a scholarship to study abroad, neuroscience. First, because my university in Brazil didn't have a lot of neuroscience classes, and I wanted to take. And when I was choosing which country to go to, I decided to go for the US. The scholarship that I applied is called Ciências Sem Fronteiras, which is Science Without Borders. So the target audience was people who wanted to do research abroad. They needed scientists in Brazil and wanted to fund people who wanted to become one. That's how I ended up in University of Michigan. This is little me in college looking very happy. And then this is me in a Buffalo Wild Wings looking super excited. And then my friend is like, Paula, we're just at Buffalo Wild Wings. Like, why are you so happy? So this experience was very good to me. First, because it made me grow a lot confident in myself. And I noticed that people are willing to fund you. There are programs out there that will fund you. You can look for specific universities. Universities will have specific scholarships for you, for the identities that you might have. There are universities, even abroad, outside the US, that will have scholarships for short stay. That's also something that you can look for. There are plenty of organizations within the US that give scholarships to people. And if you have a dual citizenship, certain countries will give you a scholarship based on your nationality, just like Brazil gave me one. And again, each scholarship will have its specific target audience. So you don't have to force yourself to fit into one. Just look for the one that it's appropriate for you, your life goals, the identities that you have. Now, as I said, after this experience, I knew exactly what I wanted to do afterwards. I wanted to become a scientist. I wanted to go into graduate school, become a college professor, neuroscientist. And after the scholarship, I was very confident with myself. I thought I knew exactly what I had to do to progress in the career that I had chosen. So I started applying for travel grants. Those are money that specific organizations give you to go for conferences so that you can present your research. I focus on my research. I got a lot of hours out of my day to focus on research inside a lab, and I got a lot of research experience. I attended conferences, presented my research. So all of those activities helped build my curriculum vitae, the CV that I said, where we put all of our professional experiences. And then when I was about to graduate from college, I found another scholarship offered by the Brazilian government to do a PhD abroad. I was like, this is it. I'm going to apply to the United States again. I got this. And of course, I got 0 offers. Nowhere accepted my application. So that was very interesting. It's very hard to deal with failure in life, especially because sometimes we might interpret that failure means whatever we wish is not for ourselves, it's for other people. But that's not true. It just means that even though you're controlling everything, and that you have everything you need to succeed, sometimes the outcome is unpredictable. And I can definitely prove this. So this is a book written by Angela Duckworth. She's also a researcher, but she researches what makes people successful. So she got a group of people who had just started college, and she wanted to see, okay, so what are the things that this group of people have in common that'll make them succeed college? So she looked for their identities, SAT scores, grades through high school, grades in the first year of college. She was trying to see what exactly they had in common. And then what she found out was that they had what she named grit. So grit stands for gut, resilience, initiative, and tenacity. In other words, it means no matter how many failures those people had throughout their lives, they didn't give up. And this is true. Things will go wrong again and again and again for everybody. There's no way we're going to succeed at everything that we put our minds to. And that's okay. If that's something that we really want out of life, we just got to have to keep going and going and going, and we're going to eventually succeed, because that's what successful people have in common. Okay, well, eventually, because I didn't get into any PhD abroad, I decided to do a master's degree in Brazil. Then I applied again, and now I'm here. So the take-home message throughout my path was, first, follow your dreams. Only you know what you need and what you want out of life. Look for opportunities that will make this dream come true. There are funding opportunities out there to help you if you need. Use professional opportunities in college to get where you need to be. College has so many opportunities, guys. You can apply for conferences, intern opportunities, research, etc. There's so much to do. And last, don't give up, because even when you're doing your best and applying everything you have to your dream, you might hit a wall. You just have to keep going. Just as a side note is that college is an experience. Make sure you enjoy it. Study abroad if you can. Studying abroad was a great experience in my life. And a quote for you guys before I go is, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror, no feeling is final. So thank you guys for listening to me. I'm part of the podcast called Welcome to Grad School. In Welcome to Grad School, we interview other graduate students about their own pathways to go to grad school. So people from different backgrounds and different life experiences. If you guys are interested in that, make sure you look us up. We're both on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Paula. Thank you so much. I would like to announce and remind our families here today that if you have questions for our speakers, please use the Q&A button at the bottom to type your questions, and we'll make sure we get them answered for you. And if you have a question for a specific speaker, please do note the name. All right, our final speaker of the evening will be Samantha. Samantha Velasco is a third-year undergraduate student at UCR. She initially started her journey to higher education at community college before transferring to UCR as a psychology major. Currently, she is assisting with research in Dr. Monica J. Carson's neuroinflammation lab and hopes to one day attend medical school to become a physician here in the Inland Empire. Some of her non-academic interests include cooking, pet sitting, and volunteering with UCR Chicano student programs. Her favorite part about being a pre-medicine student at UCR is the ability to mix her interest and integrate science into her life as a psychology major through neuroscience research. As a non-traditional student who started at community college and as a Latina pursuing medicine, Samantha hopes to inspire others to follow their dreams. Quote, it is the pursuit of our dreams that help to create leaders in our community and pave the way for others to succeed. All right, Samantha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Velasco, and I'm going to be taking you through my journey through undergrad. So next slide, please. All right, so everyone knows me as Sam. Everyone calls me Sam. I'm from the IE, so I was born and raised in Moreno Valley. I am half Filipino and half Mexican. That's my dad and my stepmom there. They're from the state of Oaxaca in Mexico. I didn't finish high school. I actually dropped out when I was 16. And I started community college 8 years later when I was 24. And when I went back to school, I thought I was going to be a nurse. But as we'll see through this PowerPoint, I decided to change that and pursue a career as a physician instead. So next, please. So after 8 years of working full-time, I decided it was time to go back to school. It is very tough trying to support yourself and live on your own with working multiple minimum wage jobs and trying to make ends meet. This photo on the slide is actually the photo of my first day at community college. I asked a lady walking her dog if she could take this photo of me. But Riverside City College is where I went to community college. It gave me a second chance to pursue higher education. Going straight to a university was not an option for me because I hadn't finished high school. And so community college was the best decision I could have made for myself. For me, it was free. So I actually received money from the government for going to school full time. So how it works is community college is a very inexpensive. It's about $46 a unit. So one class could be maybe like $148 or something along those lines. I think my math is wrong there somewhere. But what would happen is the government would pay for my classes and then any money left over would go into my bank account. So it was like I was getting paid to go to school. So school became my full-time job for me. And also something that was very interesting to me when I started at community college was that there were people there who were high school valedictorians. You had people there who were already had a career and they were going back to work on another career. So not everyone that goes to community college didn't graduate high school. In fact, a lot of your classmates will have been very successful on their own. And so that was a nice surprise. So next slide. So I thought I wanted to be a nurse initially. So the nursing prerequisites were general biology, anatomy and physiology, microbiology, and introductory chemistry and biochem, organic chemistry. And when I took anatomy and physiology, I really fell in love with it, especially the clinically related material. And when it came time to apply for nursing school, I wanted to learn more science. I still wanted to keep going deeper and deeper into science. And so I switched from pursuing nursing to being a pre-med student, so pursuing a career as a physician. Well, the thing is, medical school has slightly different prerequisites than nursing school did, so I had to kind of start over and take new prerequisites. So these are the STEM prerequisites that are required for most medical schools. So a year of calculus, or you could do 1 semester of calculus, 1 semester of statistics, a year of general chemistry, a year of organic chemistry, a year of physics, and 1 semester of molecular cell and developmental bio, or ecology and evolution. So next slide. So a lot of people think that you can't start having fun with your college experience until you go to a university. And I actually had a wonderful time at community college. I was very involved with my community college. I did way too many activities. I can't list them all, but I would like to list two that I think were some of the most important activities that helped with my success with community college. The first thing is their honors program. So even as a high school student, you can join the RCC honors program, and they give amazing benefits. You get priority class registrations. You can ask anyone if they're in university or community college. It's really tough to get classes, but when you're in the honors program, they give you priority to get into the classes you need to graduate in 2 years. You get small personalized class sizes. You get wonderful networking opportunities, and you can talk to these professors and get close with them and secure letters of recommendation. So as Paula and Carl will tell you, in the future, if you want to go get your PhD, or if you want to be an MD like me, you will need letters of recommendation from professors you've had. So it was really nice to develop those relationships while I was still at community college. I also had the opportunity to present at several conferences. And the honors program at RCC has high acceptance rates to say you want to go to UCLA or you want to go to UC Berkeley. UCLA and UC Berkeley give priority consideration for our honors students. And then we also have honors to honors scholarships at like UC Irvine. So for example, if you decide you want to do guaranteed admission to UC Irvine, they will give you an honors scholarship, which is really nice. Another thing I did was I worked through Federal Work Study in the academic support department. So I helped my peers and other classmates do well in their STEM courses. I really helped them to succeed. And some things were I was a biology study group leader, I was a tutor, and I was a supplemental instructor. And on top of all of this, I also volunteered and worked off campus. Like I said, I did a lot. So I've been volunteering with hospice for a very long time. I volunteer with a program with the School of Medicine called Health Coach at UCR. I worked as a patient transporter at Loma Linda, and I'm currently still working as an ER scribe in a community hospital. So next slide. So another thing is that a lot of people might think that you can't do research until you get to university. And I'm here to tell you that I actually did a lot of research while I was still at community college. I was very lucky because RCC has a partnership with UCR because it's their sister school. And so while I was at RCC, I was able to do a lot of research at UCR while I was still a community college student. And something that I do want to say is that, like Paula was saying, you can get paid to do research. As a Latina and a community college student, I'm considered underrepresented in STEM. And so there were lots of grants and scholarships and stipends from organizations like the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health. And I applied for those and I got paid very nicely to do research over my summers. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are some of the research experiences I have done, not all of them, but some of them. That's a photo of me presenting my research in plant biology. So I had lots of fun with that. And right now I'm currently with Carl and Paula in their neuroscience lab. So next, please. All right, so I did say I was a psychology major, and this was a webinar on journey through STEM. So I would like to say that I mix psychology and STEM. My path is different from Paula and Carl's because I would like to go to medical school. And so to apply to medical school, a lot of people think you have to be a biology major or a chemistry major, and if that's what you love, then major in it. But some people major in it and it's not what they love, and I absolutely love psychology, and so I said I'm going to major in psychology. So like I said, you don't need to be a STEM major to go to medical school. You just need to have those prerequisites that I had mentioned earlier. You have to have them done. And so I'm a psychology major, but I focus more on the neuroscience side of psychology. So in Dr. Carson's lab, I've done all different types of research, both wet and dry labs. So wet lab is like if you ever watch in the movies and they have like the lab coat and they're doing things with liquids, right? That's wet lab. Dry lab is more like doing stuff on a computer or doing surveys out in the public. So not all research is like the stuff you see on Jurassic Park, right? And so this photo I have here is one of my projects was I was measuring these cells in the brain before and after they were exposed to allergens. And we used this program called NeuroLucida. And I thought that was a really nice photo to show y'all of that's the microglia in our brain. And so right now my project is I'm working on something called immunofluorescent staining. And all it is we light up biological molecules under a microscope using antibodies, and it's awfully pretty. So it's like artwork. So next. So I'm at UCR now, and I became very involved with their School of Medicine. UCR is very friendly to their pre-medical and pre-health students. So they have a lot of pathway programs. So of the 8 available pathway programs to undergraduates, I am in 4 of them. So the B2B, the Bridges to Baccalaureate program, that's the research program that got me in Dr. Carson's lab. Future Physician Leaders, which is open to high school students. The application's actually due tomorrow. But Future Physician Leaders is a public health summer research opportunity, and you do a project and you learn about the health disparities here in the Inland Empire. The Health Coach program, that's where I volunteer in a primary care clinic and I help patients manage their chronic conditions working with their doctor. And the Medical Scholars program is a program of mentorship at UCR School of Medicine where juniors and seniors will mentor freshmen and sophomores at UCR and help them with their journey to applying to medical school. So next. All right, so life at UCR. I absolutely love UCR. I had several different choices of where I was going to go to undergrad, but ultimately with my goal of wanting to become a physician and wanting to stay close to home, I picked UCR and I'm very happy with my choice. They're very supportive of their undergraduate students. They have a diverse set of student support programs. So a program that I'm heavily involved with is Chicano student programs. They also provide many opportunities for research, both in the summer and year-round. So if you want to get a PhD like Caro and Paula, we have programs like the Mark U. Star program and the California Alliance for Minority Participation, and that pays really nice for you to do research in the lab. And then if you are like me and you want to do, maybe you want to be a PA or a physician, we have our pathway programs like the ones I talked about earlier and our health professions advising center. So whatever your goal with STEM is, there's something for you at UCR. So next. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So my final thoughts, you know what, if I could go back, I would have finished high school, everyone. And I would have started community college sooner. I wouldn't have taken that big gap of like 8 years. With the knowledge I have now, would I have gone straight to a 4-year? With my experience, I still would have picked community college for my first 2 years before transferring to UCR. And it's totally okay to not know what you want to do right away. But don't take too long to figure things out like I did. That's the beauty of education here in the US. You can take your times. You don't have to pick right away, but I don't recommend taking like almost a decade to figure it out like I did. And also, no one's journey is the same. What works for others may not work for you, and you will get to where you want to be on your own timeline. So make sure to enjoy the journey along the way to your destination in life. So thank you.
All right, thank you everyone. It was wonderful to hear from all of our speakers tonight. And it's now question and answer time. So please do, if you have any questions, we have a few minutes for questions and answers from the audience. And if you have further questions or would like to further connect, we have our Biomed Division email listed below, or you can contact our Student Services Advisor, or Mila. via the email below as well. And feel free to visit our website for more information about our biomedical sciences. I guess to start off, I know we had one question in the chat thus far, or sorry, in the Q&A panel. Does anyone kind of want to elaborate or add on more to this question, asking for someone interested in biology, what kind of courses in biomedical sciences or biology would one take or should one take, and at what kind of universities and which universities?
Sure, perhaps I can add a bit more onto what I had written already in the answer there. So I'll give an example, for example, from Cal Poly, which is where I went for my undergraduate education. Our degree programs had a strict set of classes you had to take. So for the biotechnology major, we had to take a little bit of microbiology, we had to take molecular biology, certain amounts of it. But then you're also given freedom with, say, a list of 15 courses or so, where you could pick a few out of those. And those essentially kind of become your specialty. So within those, there were courses within physiology. There was a course in medical microbiology that focused on specifically pathology, so like bacterial infections and stuff like that. So for someone who is more inclined towards biomedical sciences or the medical field, those were the courses that they would take. It really depends program to program. You just have to, once you begin your program, speak with your advisors. You will be assigned an advisor pretty much immediately when you start your undergraduate degrees. So try to meet with them as quickly as possible and plan out your first couple of years of courses.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating, Carol. How about a question for anyone that wants to take it? What might you recommend for students while they are still in middle school or high school to help them prepare for a STEM career, if this is something that they're interested in, but not sure what steps to take right now?
So it's hard for me sometimes to answer some of those questions because I grew up in Brazil, so I'm not aware of if the same opportunities are here. But in Brazil, as a high school student, there were programs that allowed students to do like a summer research opportunity in a research lab. So this is good to have some sort of hands-on opportunity before you apply to college and to see if you enjoy the everyday lab activities. I'm sure Carapet and maybe Samantha will have some sort of idea if this is possible here in the US as well.
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways to engage in the STEM community. One of the most direct ways that I could think of are science fairs. So if you have some kind of interesting idea, and it might be something that you learned in class, in a science class, and you're like, "Ooh, I'd love to learn more." If you prepare a little science experiment and go to a science fair. I know, for example, the Pomona Valley area does a science fair. I've actually been a judge at that science fair for one of the years. And I believe Riverside Unified School District also has science fairs and stuff as well. So there are a lot of ways to engage in science, even at the high school level, to get you started. But I think the best use of your time would be to try to learn as much as you can. Just see if you're curious about something, just learn about it, and kind of try to figure out what you might want to study. And as I mentioned in my presentation, it's okay if you change your mind, but having that bit of a foundation can go a long way your first couple of years in college.
I would like to add that the UCR School of Medicine and their pathway programs has several programs geared towards high school students and even some middle school students. So I went ahead and shared that link with Jessica to share with all of you. But yes, you can get involved with our pathways programs at the School of Medicine as early as high school, even some middle school. So there is programs on that website.
Yes, thank you for sharing. How about another question? What do you see yourselves doing in the future, career-wise? I know, Samantha, it's physician, feel free to add, but maybe Carl and Paula can also share.
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently exploring different career opportunities. Something that I've been interested in for a long time was being a professor, staying within academia, doing research, and helping train the future generations of scientists who would be able to contribute much more than I would be able to on my own. So that is definitely something that I am interested in, and I TA in the School of Medicine to kind of get a bit of a taste of what that experience would be like. And I'm hoping in the near future to be teaching a couple of undergraduate courses to get a better sense of what the day-to-day life of a professor is. But other than that, I mean, there's industry, starting your own company. There's lots that can be done. And even at my stage of being into my second year of my PhD, I'm still exploring those career opportunities. So just keeping an open mind is great.
Yeah, there are a lot of career opportunities if you do a PhD within science, and even before the PhD. Some of those are intuitive, like Carapet, I do want to continue in academia. I want to become a professor in a research institution so that I can have my own lab and do my own research with a team. But there are opportunities that we don't even think about. For example, a friend of mine got this job as a journalist, and she writes a column specifically about science. And that's something that only people who have experience with science are able to do, you know. So the pathways are many out there. Industry, for example, we have a lab at UCR that works with video games and how video games impact cognition, and they're studying it to use games to explore certain abilities that we might want to improve in humans in general. And then I know that because they work with video games, they have some sort of collaborations to make those video games. So, you know, there's so many opportunities out there.
I'd like to add a small point to this. Many of the programs that they have at undergraduate, I was a part of one of them. It's actually called the RISE Scholars Program, which I believe now is called the B2B program. They will actually also help you explore career opportunities, as well as teach you how to apply into the graduate level of programs. For example, when I started in my undergraduate, I didn't even know I could skip a master's and go straight to a PhD. But the RISE program, which had a lot of excellent advisors, taught me about that, as well as helped me to learn how to explore all the different career opportunities that you can have as a scientist. So I would highly recommend trying to get into one of those programs once you start your undergraduate education. Or as early as high school, as Samantha said, some of them offer as early as high school some pathway programs.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you sharing all of these wonderful resources and information, and of course, your personal journey as well. It is now 6 o'clock, so out of respect for everyone's time here, we will now close this session, but please do reference the follow-up email for any more references. Thank you.